So we're back again with emotional sobriety. Right now I'm reading chapter 14, and this is a bit shorter than the last. This is titled The Biology of Fear. Why do I think I can't survive my feelings? Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the question themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live with them, to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Perhaps you do carry within you the possibility of creating and forming, as an especially blessed and pure way of living. Train yourself for that, but take whatever comes with great trust. And as long as it comes out of your will, out of some need of your innermost self, then take it upon yourself and don't hate anything. Rainier Marie Rilke. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Franklin D. Roosevelt. I look around the room and see 10 or 12 frightened faces. Some people seem frozen in place. Their faces look immobile. Their bodies look stilted and tense. Maybe one or two have bonded and are talking with each other. Someone else is cracking jokes, trying to relieve the mounting tension. A couple of people are smiling recklessly. They're scared stiff, afraid of what might come up in their course of a week. When I work in treatment centers, the first evening people arrive, they often look terrified. They're afraid of what feelings might well up inside of them that they won't be able to handle, that will overwhelm them, take over their heads and hearts, leak into their bodies, and make them shiver inside. Their fear is of feeling just the way they felt at those indelible moments when they have been hurt, helpless, misunderstood, or resentful. They want to flee, to noiselessly disappear into themselves, to pick a fight. So what if that happens here? What if everyone knows that they are only big on the outside, but that deep inside of them is a little person craving attention, a 9-year-old dying to please, an adolescent wanting to tell everyone to get lost, or just a scared adult who is, at moments, barely holding it together? There is no outsmarting the symptoms of relationship trauma, codependency, or the disease of addiction. Even if our mind forgets, our bodies have recorded and will remember and react to situations that have frightened us. If we never process those frightened scenes, elevated our fears and anxieties to a conscious level where we made sense of them and let them go, they will live inside of us, an emotional accident waiting to happen. I'm going to reread that again because I think it's good. If we never processed those frightening scenes, elevated our fears and anxieties to a conscious level where we made sense of them and let them go, they will live inside of us, an emotional accident waiting to happen. People often want some sort of magic bullet that will relieve them of the pain that they carry as quickly and painlessly as possible. But when it comes to emotional healing, the quick way can be the slowest. It can be just what locks us into shallow, defensive, and superficial solutions that never quite work. We go for novelty rather than cure, for momentary relief rather than long-term change and gain. This is why it is critical that we undertake recovery as a rational and long-term process. In group therapy and one-to-one, old lockdown fears can get triggered. But this time we're in a situation designed to help us observe ourselves in action so that we can say, wait a minute. I'm doing just what I do at home with my son, daughter, or partner. I'm closing down, My body is flooding with all sorts of feelings that make me want to race out of the room, scream at someone, or shut down and disappear. I'm queasy and shaky. Wow, I'm scared. And this is what I'm like when I'm scared. And this is what scares me, where my tender spots are. Wanting a quick fix is natural. We feel stupid when we can't figure out our own emotions. We feel like kids who can't get it, and that feeling of ineptness doesn't fit with the fact that we may be fully adults in all other ways. So we want to hide this part of ourselves, to read a book that will fix the problems, to get an insight that will make it all go away. But if we can understand that having these blind spots is perfectly natural, that we all in fact have them, we can begin to use our mature reasoning to slowly and patiently work our way out of them. Once we accept this fear reaction as nature's way of protecting us from harm, we can spot feelings embarrassed by it and start to heal our own sore spots. We want quick fixes, but through understanding, we can find a better way, the way of understanding. So, why do we want quick fixes, and what gets in the way of our ability to change? 1. We're wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, so it's natural to want to minimize what hurts. Our body doesn't recognize that we are choosing to let ourselves feel hurt in the short term for a long-term gain. Our thinking mind needs to convince our limbic brain that recovery is worth it. 2. We get emotionally, psychologically, and physically run down and stressed out, and we want to feel better now, fast. 3. We simply don't understand how the unconscious fear and or stress response works. So we project the pain from yesterday's relationship into relationships today, which gets us stuck all over again. We reenact rather than heal our pain. 4. We have a degree of learned helplessness. When our fear gets mobilized, so do old feelings of helplessness to get anything to change. 5. We freeze or disassociate. We're not in our bodies. We're gone. We're frozen in our limbic mind and have no access to our thinking mind. 6. We lose the ability to conceptualize change, to envision a different solution or future outcome. Our thinking gets frozen. 7. Our low frustration tolerance makes us want to change fast, and if we don't, we want to give up. 8. There is a loss of trust and faith that accompanies trauma. We lose faith that things can work out for us. We lose hope that we can change our lives. 9, I believe. Rigid defenses that we have relied on to keep us safe can get in the way of our making changes. We hunker down, dig our heels in, and do whatever we have always done. We don't want to feel out of control or overwhelmed with the kinds of feelings that we imagine change will engender. So back to the treatment group from the beginning of the chapter. It's 5 days later, or 6, 8, or 28, depending on the program. The group has had a time of opening up, of communal living, of letting people see them as they really are, warts and all, and of seeing others in the same way. They look like a different group of people. They're loose and relaxed. Their faces are easy and open. They hang out together, laugh a lot, and take the day as it comes, enjoying each other's company. They have cried together and let their pain out. They've laughed until the tears rolled. They have felt experiencing a sense of self-confidence and self-assurance that they can stand on their own, face their own inner demons, and watch them melt away. They're motivated to make the kinds of changes that will allow them to maintain their new sense of emotional freedom and sobriety. Not only do they no longer wish to flee from the room, they want to stay here for weeks, months even. They're looking forward to going home and trying out their newfound selves, but the feeling of openness, acceptance, and connection that they have experienced from opening up, from working through painful historical feelings, and accepting caring and support from others is almost intoxicating. They want to hang on to it. They don't want to forget how good it feels to break their own denial and work through fear and pain that they have been carrying in silence. So, how the thinking mind deconditions the fear response. Our fear response needn't runs us. In animal studies, fear was induced and then extinguished in lab rats. Excuse the individualist comparison, but these studies clearly spell out how relatively easy it might be to recondition our fear response if the stimuli are changed. Rats normally freeze with fear when they hear a tone they have been conditioned to associate with an electric fear-inducing shock, just like we freeze with fear when we get scared. Dr. Gregory Quirk and Mohammed Milad of the Ponce School of Medicine, Puerto Rico, while doing research funded by the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH acronym, extinguishes this fear response by mimicking have now demonstrated that stimulating the prefrontal cortex extinguishes this fear response by mimicking the brain's own safety signal. Dr. Quirk explains that repeated exposure to traumatic reminders without any adverse consequences causes fear responses to gradually disappear. Such reduction of fear appears to be an active rather than passive process. It doesn't erase the fear associated from memory, but generates a new memory. This new memory creates a sort of safety zone in which the fear can dissipate. Eventually, we forget to be afraid. The thinking mind tells the feeling mind that it no longer needs to freeze up at the same stimuli that previously were scary. As rats were shocked, the research recorded electrical activity of neurons in their prefrontal cortex. The rats were literally taught to fear a particular tone because it was paired with a shock over and over again. The researchers then deconditioned the fear response by presenting the tone without the shock. Eventually, the animals no longer froze when they heard the tone. People in psychodrama and group therapy learn through repeated exposure to others expressing their intense emotions that they no longer have to fear the expression of strong emotions, that the expression, in fact, can lead to calm resolutions rather than out-of-control behavior. In psychodrama, we trigger old fear, but put a new memory besides it that allows us to decondition the fear memory. We learn that we're safely past the danger zone, that we are adults now who are no longer helpless and stuck, that we can take care of ourselves. Now, fear and survival. Why feelings associated with relationship trauma can feel so overwhelming. In the next few paragraphs, I have reviewed some of the dynamics of fear that can create problems for us. Fear itself is coded into our survival system. The body doesn't really know the difference between a physical threat or an emotional fear, stress, and anxiety. Both mobilize the deep defenses associated with our trauma response, namely fight, flight, and freeze. The painful or scary emotions that we experience in our primary survival or family relationships go to our very core, to that mind-body fear apparatus. That's why they feel so huge. Fear is one of the evolution's most necessary and adaptive emotions. It warns us of danger and was designed to keep us safe. But we need to develop discrimination so that we can figure out when we're in real danger as opposed to when our fear apparatus is being activated in ways that just needlessly wear us out both emotionally and physically. We also need, in relationships, to learn how not to get stuck in defensive positions that keep us from being able to work things out in comfortable ways. Fear leads to biological changes induced by adrenaline. As we learned in our chapter on memory, our sense of danger performs the task of activating the amygdala, which is the unconscious or implicit fear pathways in the brain and or body system. When we get scared, anxious, or highly stressed, the amygdala discharges patterns activate our body's fear circuits, which increases our heart rate and blood pressure. We get sweaty hands, dry mouth, and tense muscles. In order to respond quickly to a threat, the body tries to divert blood flow from the digestive areas in the face, head, and neck so that it can be used in preparation for fleeing or standing and fighting. Fear can get stuck in our bodies. If we can't flee or fight a situation that is throwing us into an acute stress state, those biological urges can get frozen in the musculatory and fascia of our body as thwarted intentions, or what we call in psychodrama act hungers. It is these urges to flee or flight, these actions never taken, that get triggered repeatedly throughout our lives when our old unresolved fear and hurt from past relationships gets triggered by relationships in the present. They emerge as a transference reaction or projections, or they drive reenactment patterns. It's why an abused child might become an abusing adult or parent. Fear can be unconscious or conscious. Evolution evolved our fear circuitry to do this job in a split second, far faster than our conscious mind operates. These split seconds can mean life or death. Our ability to recognize danger almost before it hits might just save us or those we love from harm. So, our fear apparatus has to operate beneath the level of our awareness. We need to sense danger, get scared, and run to safety, or stand and fight. Because all of this happens so fast, it happens beneath the level of our conscious awareness. That's why our fear reaction can be unconscious. Sometimes we can be scared, in other words, but not really know we're scared. We can get locked into defensive positions without even knowing exactly why. Unprocessed fear scenes from one situation can get triggered without Unprocessed fear scenes from one situation can get triggered without conscious awareness. The hippocampus, particularly sensitive to the encoding of the context associated with aversive or stressful types of experience. We might remember sights, sounds, smells, textures, tastes, and so on, but not know what they are connected to exactly. This is a small bit of information that has large implications in terms of relationship trauma. It is because of the hippocampus that not only can a stimulus become a source of conditioned fear, but so can all the objects surrounding the frightening situation. And this can happen without our conscious awareness. This is how memory gets generalized. So, fear's vicious cycle. If we are regularly exposed to frightening situations and we aren't able to process, understand, or gain comfort for our fear, if we become stuck in chronic fear and or flight state, our bodies can become sensitized and wired for overreactions. We become easily triggered into a fear state and experience psychological changes associated with the fear response. Then we become afraid of the psychological changes. That is, our bodies may tighten up or shiver and shake. Our hearts may race, our stomach gets queasy, and our palms sweat. But this can then trigger even more fear in us. We get afraid of being afraid of our own body responses sends us deeper into our feelings of fear. This can send us into a vicious cycle where the psychological changes we're experiencing makes us more afraid, and our fear produces more psychological changes. As an attempt to protect ourselves or avoid these uncomfortable feelings, we may start to live small. And that's the end of chapter 14. Again, this is emotional sobriety. And yes. Bye.